Assalamualaikum everyone. Our topic today is about riba and the risk avoiding and risk shifting banking system. It is very important for us to distinguish between al-bay' and riba. For sure, we know by now that the Quran has prescribed al-bay' over riba. So it means that al-bay' is justice and fairness, whereas riba is zulum and unjust. Al-bay' is cooperation, whereas riba is exploitation. And these two systems, however, require a degree of understanding, because the application of al-bay' was seen to be more meaningful when it is operated under the banking business, because the riba prevail in the banking business. So the bank takes deposit and pays interest to the depositors, and the bank uses the deposit fund to make loan and charges interest onto the borrower, right? So the idea here is to see how can al-bay' be applied in the banking business. But we know that the banking business is a complicated business in view of the fact that it is based on riba, and for it to use al-bay' in order to realize its business objective, then there's a lot to be overhauled, especially in the risk area, because as we know that when it comes to al-bay', we are referring to buy and sell. We are referring to the trading and commercial sector, whereas riba dominates the lending sector, the lending and borrowing sector. So these two distinction, riba and al-bay', need to be understood, so that we will not be confused about what is risk taking, what is risk sharing, what is profit loss sharing, and what is risk avoiding and risk shifting and risk transfer. So this risk taxonomy in Islamic finance need to be built, need to be constructed, so that we will not be confused whenever we are looking at the Islamic banking system that is promoting profit loss sharing, promoting risk taking, promoting risk sharing, so that that degree of understanding is very important, so that people can better understand what the Quran intends to do when it prescribes al-bay' over riba. We are still looking at SDG number 8, that is the entrepreneur and the business enterprise. And when you look at the definition, what is an entrepreneur? It is a person who undertakes the risk of starting a new business venture. So entrepreneurship, is an operation where people will be risking their capital in order to realize profit. And the entrepreneur will combine money capital, that is labor, and human capital, money capital, which is your investment, and human labor, that is our skill and expertise, in order to produce goods and services for profit. So it is very important to see what kind of risk that the entrepreneur is facing compared to the risk faced by the bank. And therefore, it is very critical for us to look at a bit of the risk taxonomy in Islamic finance, because this risk behavior need to be understood very well within the context of the Quranic commandment about al-bay' and riba. So al-bay' is permissible. So we are talking about al-bay' as a risk-taking venture where the merchant or the trader, they are risking their money capital into the business. And this capital would be confronted with possible appreciation and possible depreciation by virtue of the market forces. So the legal maxim al-gharum bi-ghunni verify, that in al-bay' that in order to make profit, the merchant will accept losses. So this is the main idea of risk-taking in al-bay', whether we are dealing with murabah or ijara or equity, mudarabah, musyarakah. The idea is to put our capital at risk so that it is subjected, meaning that it is subjected to the demand, to the forces of demand and supply. And the risk sharing will come later, when this so-called risk-taking business enterprise, it requires more and more capital mobilization. So maybe the entrepreneur may not have enough capital to expand their business. So for scale economy, so we need to expand capital through risk sharing or through profit loss sharing. So we will mobilize, we will invite many more people into the company, and this is where the profit loss sharing and risk sharing will enter into the picture, but that will come after the risk-taking operation of the enterprise. So in order to make money, then the entrepreneur is ready to accept the possible loss of money, and that of course has been explained by the legal maxim al-gharum bi-ghunni. So there is no certainty about capital appreciation under al-bay', which is true under riba. So in the riba system, there is no risk-taking because the loan has been guaranteed with capital appreciation by virtue of the riba or interest awarded to the to the lending party, right? So riba is an increase over a loan, and when the loan is contracted with an increase, then the riba contract will prevail, and that would mean that the lending party, is able to enjoy the capital appreciation by virtue of risk, by virtue of avoiding risk, right? So by way of contract and agreement, this riba agreement will guarantee that the lending party will enjoy capital appreciation or deposit appreciation. So that is the riba, excuse me, that we know today. And in the banking system, we can see that this kind of risk avoiding behavior is further turned into a risk shifting mechanism, because in order to avoid risk, that risk need to be moved away, from the owner, and that's why we have risk shifting. So for example, the bank takes deposit from all of us and offers like 3% interest per annum. So by virtue of that offering, the depositor will enjoy deposit appreciation over the tenure, but at the same time, the depositor will be avoiding any potential losses on the deposit, because the deposit can be claimed at par value plus interest at maturity. and therefore there is no risk at all associated with the deposit. So if the bank uses the deposit fund to make a loan, then the risk in the loan, which is credit, market, and operational risk, will be carried by the bank. So now we can see that the risk in the deposit is now shifted to the bank, where the bank will be absorbing any loss in the loan. So there is a risk shifting from the depositor to the bank. And what the bank will do next is to shift the risk in the loan to the borrowing party. So the borrower, people like all of us, will pay a loan rate consisting of the cost of fund plus the credit risk premium. So this credit risk premium will be the amount of payment that we need to pay the bank for using their services, that is from the loan that we take from the bank. And being a risky customer, we are required to bear the risk. And that is done by virtue of paying the loan rate based on the credit risk premium charged by the bank, right? So the more risky the loan, the higher will be the credit risk premium, and vice versa. So the bank, will automatically shift the risk in the loan to the borrowing party by virtue of the loan rate that the bank is charging us. And the loan rate is the sum of the cost of fund plus the credit risk premium. So the credit risk premium will represent the risk in the loan that will be borne by whom? By the customer, by virtue of the finance charge or loan rate accorded by the bank to the borrowing party. Okay, guys, we'll stop here. Then we'll continue a bit more later on. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.